Pocket Party.
Okay, big day here on the Pocket Party Podcast. Cledus T, Judd, you got it. By the way, if you want to help out the podcast, we signed up for Buy Me a Coffee. You should see the little link. Go ahead and click that link. And if you feel like donating little, buy me a coffee, you can. Also, the link on the link tree will take you to a lot of cool places. And as always, no matter what platform you're listening to, go to YouTube and leave a comment on this episode and any others you'd like to. All right, let's get into it. And if it's your first time, welcome to the Pocket Party Podcast. Today it's Cledus T, Judd.
Yo, yo.
There he is. We're live. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's such an honor to have you on the Pocket Party Podcast. And I've been a big fan for years. You're one of those guys I'd always see a video pop up and be like, damn, that guy's funny. And then as time goes by, you just realize like, oh, this is like a real person. Like, I don't know. To me, you're one of those guys that was just like a big star that you just kind of see and you don't really think any further than that. And then, I don't know, man, something hit me. I think I listened to you on a couple of different podcasts. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. And I said, I got to reach out to him and I very rarely, I don't know how you are, I don't really just reach out to like stars and people that I do
that all the time. They just never respond. Yeah.
You know what, man? I just got to say it's an honor, dude. And I thank you. And it's funny, I heard you on that podcast. The first one I heard you on, I want to say was Tracy Lawrence. And
yeah.
And then I listened to you on Duro, and I'm driving. I was on a 3-hour drive, and I'm like, I'm laughing along with you guys. I'm crying along with you guys.
Uh-oh.
I'm looking like a maniac in my car. And I said, I gotta reach out to Cledus, man, and just tell him how much I enjoyed hearing him on those shows and your journey that you've gone through. And okay, that's enough of me talking. And I want to thank you.
No, man. Thank you. Thank you very much for all those compliments. I appreciate it. I've had a great run, for a long time. And as we all know in our line of work, it's never easy. It's
right.
Tough and, dealt with some struggles early on as, again, everybody's got a story. I'm not the only one, but I'm the only one that went through my journey,
Sure.
And I just had some ups and downs, pretty tough as a youngster. I really wanted to be a basketball player, but, after learning that I couldn't jump over a local phone book, I figured, I did play college basketball for a year, which was a great accomplishment for me. But even that, what wasn't easy for some reason, D, for me, I don't know about other people and about your career, but for me, man, nothing that I can think of off the top of my head, nothing ever came easy. Nothing. Ever. Right. It just seemed like everything that I wanted to do was not simple. Like going down, getting a job at the yarn factory. That's easy. I didn't like any of that. And I always knew that I was kind of built differently. Physically and mentally.
Yeah.
But as a kid, it was pretty tough along the way to some degree. And, basketball was such a great outlet for me. And, everybody said, oh, you'll never make it in basketball. You're too fat and too slow. And for some reason, man, my mother was such a big advocate of wanting me to play because she played. And there was times my senior year that I would go to the library and I would type out letters from different coaches, across the country. And my girlfriend at the time, Leanne, would mail them to my house and my mom would open them. And,
oh, wow.
She would say, oh, look, Barry, you got a letter from the University of Kentucky. They're really thinking I'm thinking, yeah, Mom, I don't know if I want to go to Kentucky or not. I'm going to wait on North Carolina, or maybe UCLA or something. And
yeah,
by the grace of God, right after high school, I had a pretty good senior year. And after high school, I was playing in a competitive league with some guys, and 3 consecutive nights in a row, I scored 30, 40, and 63
Oh my
points.
gosh! Wow.
And there was a guy there that watched that, and I was playing with or against the all-time leading scorer at Marshall University here at the time, a fellow by the name of Skip Henderson, who I grew up with my whole life. I was playing against him, and the guy that watched me do that, it was primarily all black guys at the gym we were playing in. I was just one of the guys at that time, and he called the college coach up at Reinhardt, a fellow by the name of Kyle Smith, and said, "Hey, coach, there's this white kid down here killing these black dudes. We got to get him to Reinhardt. You got to watch this guy shoot." And they invited me for a tryout, and it's my luck. Here again, nothing easy. I had a tryout, and a couple of days before the tryout, I got appendicitis, and I had to have my appendix taken out. And when the coach called, Mom said, "Kyle, he can't come to the tryout because he's got 6 stitches in his belly." And I said, "Mom, I'm going. I don't care if I hemorrhage to death. I'm going to go try. This is my shot." And my mother went and bought me, I'll never forget it, Dee. She bought me a Georgia Tech sweatshirt and some Georgia Tech yellow sweatpants. And I went up there on a Saturday morning and played with a bunch of guys that were already on scholarship up there. And by the grace of the good Lord, I hit 5 or 6 shots in a row and ended up scoring maybe 10 or 12 by halftime. And Coach Smith called a timeout and said, "All right, that's it." And I thought, I didn't score enough, and he called us to the center of the gym. And I said, "Coach, I was just getting warmed up." And he said, "Buddy, let me tell you, if anybody can shoot a basketball like that, bleeding like you are, welcome to Reinhardt." And I looked down on my leg there, and then my whole right side of my leg and my sweatshirt where I had been bleeding that whole time, my leg with the sweatshirts and pants were covered in blood. And he said, "Welcome to Reinhardt." And the funny part is the admissions counselor, I'll never forget her. Her name was Joellen Wilson. She was over there, and she said, "Kyle, he hadn't even took an SAT, an ACT. His grades aren't any good." And he said, "Anybody that can shoot like that with 6 stitches in their belly deserves a scholarship to Reinhardt." And I ended up playing for a year there.
Wow.
So I got to, live out that. Although it was a small college, it was still college, and I was proud to play there.
That's amazing. How tall are you?
6 feet.
6 feet.
No height. Couldn't play defense. Couldn't jump. But I, by the grace of the good Lord, I had a pretty good stroke on me, and I could shoot as well as anybody. The great Kyle Macy, who played at Kentucky years ago, back in my day, I played in a pickup game with him one time, and he said, "Man, if you would have been 10 inches taller, you could have really played at a high next level." And I thought, man, if I had 3 inches more, I could do a lot of things better, So, but still love basketball to this day, for sure.
Do you still kind of play around a little bit with the basketball?
Man, I don't. Knees by this point, some knee surgeries and just life in general kind of catches up with you. But I do take a basketball on stage with me because when I do a show, because it's just a reminder of how hard I worked, to get to that point. And I tell the story of basketball and getting cut in the 8th grade and still hanging in there. And there's a lot of life lessons to be learned in sports like that. My high school coach is the reason that I'm sitting here talking to you today, because he never let me quit, and he instilled a belief in me that I never had growing up from a father,
Mm-hmm.
And every time in my career, just like I'm sure yours too, man, when you want to quit, every time I thought, okay, the hell with it, this is enough. I've been beaten up enough. I've been told no enough. And every time I'd get ready to hang it up, I would always hear Coach Kyle in my ear saying, "You ain't a quitter. You ain't a quitter." And I've never been able to quit anything except drugs and alcohol. And I'm glad I quit that.
I know. God bless that, man. That's
Yeah, for sure.
when you start when you so you're a little bit older than me, but I remember starting out because I started out in high school wanting to be a comedian, and excuse me, back then like hip, like rap hadn't really, like it just started kind of catching on, and me being this white kid with red hair growing up in Fresno, California, in a predominantly Latino black schools, and so when I started rapping, like just a cappella, back in the 80s, just for fun, and it was such a shock to people. They were like, what? Because this is way before Vanilla Ice. This is just, and and I was doing more of the comedic style of rap, and I didn't know if I was going to go into rap or radio or comedy, and then I got on the speech team, and that kind of gave me a lot of direction, and I said, okay, here's how you formulate a speech, and then obviously I took off and started, and I got into stand-up. But with you, did you know you were going to get into music, or did you want to get into comedy or radio?
No,
or like, what?
Not at all. I mean, I knew, like I said, at an early age, that I was strung up differently than most. I had a lot of trouble sitting still, what would later become, what they, obsessive compulsive, and, all the words that they have for it now, and I just never wanted to be normal, I guess you could say. I just wanted more. But now, growing up, my growing up is so different from yours. I grew up in the South, in a real rural part of Georgia, where there was, when you graduated, you bought a bunch of khaki pants and some Oxford shirts, and you went to work at Shaw Industries, and you worked 8 to 4:30. You played softball 3 days a week until you died. And I just never wanted that, and I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew that I didn't want that. And when I got out of college, I only stayed a year. I went to barber college. I thought, well, my uncle was a barber, and I used to help them. I used to cut hair at college, to make some extra money. And so I went to barber college, and everybody said, well, that's fine, but that's all you'll ever be is a barber. And if that's what you want to do, then go do it. And I thought, no, I want to be more than a barber, but I had to start somewhere. So I went to barber school, and I'll kind of make this quick because I don't want to bore you, but I went to barber school, got out of barber school, went to work at a barber shop, cutting 1,000 old men a day, and I knew that I didn't want to do that. I opened up my own shop about 10 minutes from my hometown in Cartersville, and it was funny. It was called Barry's Country Cuts. And I wouldn't take appointments from 12 to 1:30 because Days of Our Lives was on, and I didn't want to miss my soap opera,
That's hilarious. Back then,
I'll never forget it. It was the day that unfortunately, that the space shuttle exploded. And I think that was in '86, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
And I had got an Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I was reading in the classifieds, and it said, a salon in downtown Atlanta was hiring for upscale hairdressers, and there's going to be auditions Sunday morning in Atlanta. Now, you got to understand, I probably never had been to Atlanta at that point, and I thought, well, okay, let's see. Now, how do I pull this off? Because I knew I could. I was just a barber. I wasn't a hairdresser or anything. And so I went down to a buddy of mine's hair salon, and I took a model down there, and his name was Donnie Adams. And I said, man, Donnie, cut this girl's hair for me in the coolest haircut you can cut. Leave a little bit on one side, whatever you're doing. Save the hair in a plastic bag and let me have it. And I watched him cut her hair. We saved the hair in the plastic bag. That following Sunday, her name was Faith. She was my model. We drove to Atlanta, and there was about 20 guys and girls in there auditioning, and I was a nervous wreck. I mean, I was scared out of my mind. It was culture shock for me. And every time Don, the company was called Don Shaw Hairdressers. He's a major hairdresser in the world of hairdressing. Every time he would walk by, I would snip and cut a little bit, faking it. And then when he kept walking, I would take hair out of my pocket and I would throw it on the floor. And then he'd walk by and go, man, where in the world did you learn to do a haircut like that? And I said, buddy, just talent, just talent, sir. So I did the haircut, went back home, and Monday they called and said, congratulations, you made it.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh, my God, now what am I going to do? Because I didn't know how to do no upscale hair and women and all that. And so I went to work, dude, and once again, nothing came easy. I sat there and watched videotapes of the greatest hairdressers there was. I went to every class I could get my hands on. I watched, listened, learned, watched, listened, learned. And 3 years later, I was the artistic director for 3 of the biggest salons in Atlanta and was invited to perform at the World Championships of Hairdressing in Dusseldorf, West Germany in 1988. And it was the biggest crowd that I had ever played in front of in my entire career. And that's just another example of, man, it didn't come easy, but I figured it out. And as I was standing there on that stage in front of 100,000 people in that auditorium, man, it was just it was a pretty big moment for me, to go from all they said, you'll never be nothing but a barber, to standing on the biggest stage in hairdressing in the world. It was pretty big accomplishment for me.
That is, man. And there's like no roadmap for that. It's not like, oh, you do this, you do that, and then you went from a small town and didn't even cut hair from noon to 1:30.
Oh no, yeah, Lord, no, and never really did. Nothing but guys' haircuts. And man, I got so involved in it, but that was the demise of the person you're sitting here talking to as well, because at that point, I started making money, and I bought a new Porsche, and which I couldn't afford. I was making probably 35, 40 grand a year, but in 1988, that was a lot of money for a guy that never had nothing. But I ended up jumping from salon to salon, and I got involved in drugs, crystal meth, and cocaine. And I ended up going down to Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, working, trying to teach classes down there. I'd ended up losing everything I had, and I perched myself up on a bridge in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida for 6 hours one day, because I just felt like at that point my life wasn't worth living. I was an embarrassment to my family. Here I had it all, and I became a full-blown drug addict, and, I ended up not having food or clothing or no running vehicle much. And so I just thought, what, it's my destiny. And so off to the bridge I went to take care of a tough life, self-induced, of course. But by the grace of God, I was up there back and forth for almost 6 hours, I guess, and they got me down, and a friend of mine flew me home, another hairdresser, and flew me back home to Georgia, and that's when the music business started. Just a few weeks after that attempt of not feeling like I was worth anything, and that's when it all started.
Amen. Your coach was probably somewhere in the back of your mind. You're not a quitter.
Oh, no
You're not
question.
a quitter.
Oh, no question, dude. He was in my head, and when I got home, I felt like such an embarrassment, of course, as anybody would. And I was sitting in my mom's double wide trailer, and in shag carpet that you could do snow angels in. It was so thick. And Vince Gill had came on TV and on the award show in 1991, I think, and he won an award for a song called "When I Call Your Name." And I turned around and my mother was crying, and I said, "Man, Mom, what's wrong?" She said, "God, I would give anything in my life to meet Vince Gill. I think he's the most beautiful man I've ever seen." And I said, "You want to meet Vince Gill?" And she said, "Oh, son, you just don't know." And I said, "Well, I can make that happen." And she said, "No, you can't. You can't sing Silent Night. How do you think you're going to get in the to meet Vince Gill?" And I said, "If you want to meet him, I'll figure it out." And so with those few words, I went down a few weeks later and did an amateur night at a country nightclub, and and I won $50 for first place for a funny song that I had written. And I called my mom collect on a payphone, and I said, Mom, I think I did something right for a change. And about 3 months later, she bought me an old Toyota pickup truck and gave me $400, and off to Nashville I went to try to save a life, mine. And man, I went up there and I struggled. I was homeless from time to time. I'd sleep in the front seat of that truck. I would go to the YMCA and take showers and take a bath, and then go to Music Row and beg and plead and try to get somebody to listen to me. And it just wasn't going anywhere. So 1994, a snowstorm, the ice storm, a really bad ice storm came through Tennessee, and I was driving home in that old truck from work, and I was scraping the windshield with my left hand out the window with a CD, a jewel case from a CD, and I ended up getting frostbite on my left hand, and the doctors thought there was a chance I'd lose a couple of my fingers. It was so bad. And I called my mom one Sunday night, and I said, Mom, I can't do it. I have tried and tried. I said, I'm hungry. My clothes are filthy. I can't do it. And I said, you got to come and get me. And my mom said, are you sure? And I said, I've never been more sure of nothing in my life. And she asked me one more time, Darren. She said, are you sure? And when she said that, in my right ear at a little radio sitting on a table beside me, I heard a song called Indian Outlaw by Tim McGraw. And I started singing in my head, Indian In-Laws. And I sang, there been Indian in-laws, came to visit me and my squaw, been here for a month, y'all, about to lose my mind. And I said, Mom, I got to call you back. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I got to call you back. I might have something here. And I called a couple of buddies. We wrote it over the phone. I got my hand healed up. I went in the studio, borrowed $125, $250, went in the studio, recorded Indian In-Laws, and it took off and got played on almost 200 radio stations. Wow. And then the career took off. Well, to make this come full circle, there was still some obstacles, that we can talk about another time, but it was still tough. But about 4 years later, I had secured a record deal. I had sold around 700,000 records at that point.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
I came in off the road one night, and I had a phone call from a lady at the Academy of Country Music Awards, and she said, we're having a golf tournament tomorrow. Will you play in the golf tournament? And I said, well, by this time, I done got cocky and arrogant, and thinking that, my life mattered. And I said, no, I'm not interested in playing. I'm tired. I've been on the road. And she said, if you'll come and do it, we'll secure you a spot as a presenter at the ACM Awards. How's that? And I said, okay, I'll do it.
Wow.
So the next morning, man, I went to the golf course at Hermitage Golf Course. I'll never forget it. And I put my bag out, and I was looking for my name up on the wall, and I got down to hole 16A, and up on the wall there was 5 names on the board. I'll never forget them. One of them was Jeff Gossett, Chris Tate, some other guy I didn't know, Cledus T. Judd, and Vince Gill.
Whoa.
And I thought, okay, here's my chance. And one of the guys, my buddy Jeff, who I'm friends with this day, said, well, I'm going to ride with Vince. And I said, the hell you are. I have been up here, starved to death, went through frostbite and everything else. I'm riding with Vince today. And so I hopped on with Vince, and I spent the entire day with him. And I shared with him, my story and how I ended up there for my mom. And I asked him, would he do a video with me? And he said, buddy, count me in. And so a few weeks later, on an afternoon, my mom sent me to Nashville in an old pickup truck, and 4 or 5 years later, whatever the time frame was, I brought her to Nashville, her and her friends in a limousine, as long as this garage I'm sitting in. And they came to the video shoot, and halfway through the shoot, there was a knock on the door, and my video director, John Lloyd Miller, said, Mo, why don't you grab that door right there? My mom said, why me? And he said, just grab the door. And everybody at the shoot knew what was about to happen. And, man, I watched my mom walk across that old rickety hardwood floor, and with every step she took, I I thought, man, of all the struggle and the heartache and the hard times, and but I knew that just a matter of a few more steps, I will have made something happen. And my mother opened the door, and there stood Vince Gill. And I said, I told you, Mama, you'd meet him one day. And she jumped up in his arms, and Vince loved on her and hugged her. And Vince is still a close friend of mine to this day. But that was out of everything I ever done in my career, that was the biggest accomplishment, because, man, I just had again, like we said earlier, man, you know, it didn't come easy, and it wasn't hard, and I wanted to quit, and Mick Pyle, my basketball coach, wouldn't let me, and I was able to secure my mama's dream of meeting Vince Gill. And I've done a lot of things since then, but nothing will ever compare to that monumental day in a little old rickety house in Nashville, Tennessee.
That is beautiful, man. That is, man, what a treat, what a blessing. And that's amazing that it happened, that it actually happened. It was like, Mama, I'm going to do this. And somehow, some way, I think you said 4 years later, it actually happened.
I kind of get lost along the way on the timeline. It might have been maybe, so whatever. I just know the ice storm was in 1994, and it was several years after that. So, but I went on to have a great career, and did more than I ever thought I would ever get to do. You know, I've met so many amazing people, you know, that I never thought I would be friends with. And I was on tour with Brooks and Dunn one year with Kix and Ronnie and Toby Keith and Keith Urban and Montgomery Gentry. And I was sitting on the bus. We were going down the road, going to just play an old nightclub somewhere after one of the big tours. And I'll never forget, man, I and you'll remember the song that Toby always loved, Alone Again, Naturally.
Oh, I love that song. Yeah.
And man, everybody was singing it, and Toby was singing it, and I had my head down in my hands thinking, how in the hell did I pull this off?
Oh, wow.
How did I pull this off?
Alone again. Oh my gosh.
It was a surreal moment, you know, and all those guys, of course, have been friends of mine. Toby, of course, the late Toby Keith, was a dear friend of mine for many, many years, and it was something. It sure was.
Man. I'm a huge Toby Keith fan. My wife, major Toby Keith fan. Like, she saw him back when he first came out, and you know, and of course, my wife and I have been married 27 years. And I'll get this: our son, Austin, aka Ost, the bass boss, he was born. He was born to my wife in the delivery room. You know, you could play music, so we played all Toby Keith. It was all Toby Keith for the entire time she was in labor. My wife goes, the only song, she goes, Darren, don't skip any songs, but if you do, the only song I don't want our son to be born to is I'm going to get drunk and be somebody. She's like, I don't want him being born to that song, but other than that, you know, so. Man,
that's awesome. Toby was a wonderful human being. What you saw is what you got with Toby. You know, he was 100%, what you see is what you get. He was a dear friend of me for many, many years. I mean, we basically, man, we were as close as two thieves. You know, I stayed at his house. He come to mine. We traveled some together. I was in the Beer for My Horses movie with him, you know, and sad day when, you know, we kind of lost touch there. Last few years, of course, you can understand why, as he battled what he was going through. But, man, he was a dear friend, and will always be missed for sure. I'll always appreciate my time with him.
Man, that's an honor. We'd see him, you know, every time he'd come to the West Coast. Either we'd see him as a family, or my wife and son would see him if I was on the road. And I got to know a couple of his bandmates. When one time he performed at the Jimmy Kimmel show, and I one of my big breaks was, believe it or not, I was on BET. I was on Comic View. So here's this white boy on Comic View, and I would, you know, do my Bill Clinton. That's right, I'm back. Hello, you know, whatever. So, and they would play me on the best of the white guys or the impersonators or whatever. So I did it like 7 or 8 years, and so. His the horn section, some of the Willie and another guy.
Oh man, absolutely.
Willie and Geka, they're like, you're a comedian, and then so we kind of hit it off. And every time they'd come to town, we'd, one of his guitar players, Joey.
Joey Floyd.
Yes, Joey Floyd. Sometimes he didn't have a ride when they'd come to town. I go, dude, I'll pick you up at the hotel, and I take him to the Comedy Magic Club or the Comedy Store, Laugh Factory.
Oh, dude, that's awesome, man. I knew Joey. Lord, man, I knew Joey forever. Another sad loss there. Chuck, of course, his bass player. Passed away several years ago. But Joey, man, he was a character. I'll tell you, man, a quick story before I know you want to get off here in a minute, but I was out on that tour in 2001, the Brooks and Dunn Neon Circus tour, and my mother, we were in Bakersfield, California. Now, Bakersfield is as far away from Georgia as you can get. You can't get no further.
Yeah.
And my mother had suffered a heart attack, and Toby knew that I didn't like to fly. I had a real bad incident on an airplane one time. We'll talk about it another time, but man, I was on the bus. I'm thinking, oh, my God, my mother's at home. She suffered a heart attack. I was in my bunk, bawling my eyes out. And Toby Keith literally jumped up in my bunk, crawled in my bunk with me, and said, look here, Hoss, I know that you don't like to fly. I know your mom, he called her Big Mo, she had a heart attack, but he said, I went ahead and I bought you plane vouchers. As you make your trek back across the country in this bus, if your mom gets worse, you'll be able to stop in Phoenix. If she gets bad in Las Vegas, get on a plane. If you make it to Dallas, get on a plane. If you get to Fort Smith, Arkansas, Little Rock. So if something would have happened to Mom that whole trip back home, I had a bunch of plane vouchers that Toby gave me in case I needed to fly home. And Mom, of course, made it. And the next weekend was the last weekend of the tour that I had to miss. And it was a Sunday afternoon. They were playing, if I'm not mistaken, Pittsburgh was the last night of the tour. And I had bought Alan Jackson's yellow Corvette a couple of weeks prior to that from the road. And I rode around that entire Sunday with all those guys' CDs playing in my CD player. I'd listen to Toby and Kix and Ronnie and Troy and Eddie. And I was just really depressed, thinking that I couldn't be there on the last night of the greatest 4 months of my life, and about 6:30 that evening, man, my cell phone rang, and it was Joey Floyd. And I thought, man, Joey's supposed to be on stage right now. I don't know what's going on. So I answered it, and man, it was loud. And I said, Joey, man, what's going on? He said, just shut up and listen. Shut up and listen. And I heard Toby in the background, and Toby was behind the microphone, and he said, hey, guys, everybody here in Pittsburgh, just wanted to let y'all know that the guy that hosted this tour all summer with us was not able to be here tonight, and his mother had gotten sick and wasn't able to be here, and he was such a big part of this tour, and I just wanted y'all Pittsburgh to let Cledus T. Judd know that we're missing him right now. And the next thing you knew, 20,000 people were chanting Cledus, Cledus, Cledus over a cell phone. And Toby got on the phone and said, love you, pal. See you when I get home. And hung up.
Gosh. Wow.
And one of the most, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to take time out of his set to do that. And one of the most special things anybody had ever done for me, and I've always been appreciative of that.
Wow. God bless Toby and his family. And do you ever look back at moments like that and you're like, did that really happen? Oh my gosh.
Oh,
it's
dude.
I mean, it's got to feel like a movie, especially when you're alone.
It is. I'm sure we all do. No matter the status, no matter what level, there's times that I'm in this garage that I've turned into a little podcast studio that I'm gonna start doing. That you and I'll jump on one together. But I look around this room and man, I see a big, huge poster that Kix and Ronnie gave me with all me and Keith and Toby on it, and there's another one there of George Jones and me on it, and Rascal Flatts, my buddies from Rascal Flats, and Kid Rock and Pamela Anderson.
Oh man!
Yeah, it's not normal. Yeah, it ain't normal. It's not. But I tell you, man, what I'm struggling with, and I'm gonna get off here so you can get on with your evening.
By the way, we have a little bit more time, so no rush, no rush. We can keep going.
The thing that I struggle with, and I don't know if you saw my post this morning that I posted on Facebook. If you didn't, you can take a look at it. But man, it's like, I had such a great run and did more than I ever thought, and it was as surreal can get. 30, 35 videos on CMT and Celebrity Fit Club out in LA when I lived out there, and just one thing after the next, and then in 2005 and 6 I could kind of feel the demise. The career was kind of going down, and I moved to Florida and started doing morning radio, and I was away from my daughter who was just born, and long story short, I ended up moving to Kentucky to be close to my kid, because I knew that although I was making a lot of money, I realized at an older age that, once the memory's passed, you can't buy it back. There's no amount of money. I used to lay in bed and go, God, look, I got $350,000 in a savings account. I'll give it to the homeless shelter if you promise me I don't have to miss my daddy-daughter dance this coming weekend.
Yeah.
But I got shows to do, so there was no way to buy those things back. And so I finally said, okay, I'm going home. If I got to sell cars, I'll sell cars for a living. And I kind of walked away from it for a long time, about 6 years to come here and be a dad to my daughter and take her to school and pick her up. And then about 4 years ago, man, Ray Stevens, the great Ray Stevens, one of my idols, they had called, and Caitlin and my family had been after me to get back and do it again. They could see the hurt in my heart, that I missed it. And Ray Stevens, some folks from Ray Stevens Company, and Ray asked me to come and do a show with him in Renfro Valley, Kentucky. And I said, man, I can't, Ray. I'm old has been. I'm done. I can't do that. But when your idol asks you to do it, you go do it. If you got to fake it, lip sync it, Milli Vanilli it, whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
I went down to that theater and I talked to Ray, and I went out on stage and I did 40 minutes, and there's about 5,000 people there, and I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
And I came off the stage and Ray said, now, why was it that you said you wanted to stay retired? And I said, Ray, I just didn't feel like I was relevant anymore. And he said, 5,000 people just thought you were relevant. And he said, there are not many of us that do this musical thing. So I think it's time for you to come on back, buddy. Good to see you. I got to go on stage. And I came back and did it again. Here we go again.
Wow.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Took money out of the savings account, paid for my own videos. CMT took them back. The shows started picking up. And of course, I did do some shows where they all came in the same car. It wasn't always great, but somehow, man, again, just I don't know why. Hell, I don't know why. One day it'll have to end, or the good Lord will take me out of here. I may have just come to the end of the road where I can say, okay, and I'm not quitting.
Yeah.
It's time to walk away, but I'm not to that point yet. I've got a lot of life left in me. I love what I do. I love people. I love to tell my story in hopes that it inspires somebody else and to do bigger and better things than even I done. And at the end of the day, man, if I can do that, then if I do make it to heaven, I'm not going to get right in. I'll probably have to sit somewhere on a bench somewhere and wait my turn, but I hope he says, hey, man, come on in. You did good. So that's what I'm hoping.
By the way, I listened this morning. I was like, you know what? And I listened to the first big song, the Indian Outlaw, the Indian In-Law.
Yeah,
that was a great song to come out right out the gate. Like, bam! Here I am. I'm Cledus T. Judd. This is my song. It was funny. It sounded great. It was, man, what a great song! Like your debut.
Man, it was, and here again, I did that with the late Bruce Birch, who was a phenomenal songwriter, and another friend of mine, Jody Jackson, and but even then, I ended up getting a small record deal out in L.A. A guy by the name of Mitch Cohen. He signed me to this little small record label, and we did a couple of videos and sent them to CMT, and they passed on me, said no. And so I ended up signing with a company called Razor and Tie out of New York, and they gave me a budget, and I went in and cut an album for $7,500. And the first song off that album was If Shania Was Mine. And we shot the video, and the way that CMT worked back in 1996 or 7, I think it was 96 that came out, they would take all the new submissions on a Friday, and the entire staff would come into a conference room, and they would watch the submissions, and then they would go, yeah, put it on, no, not going to happen. Put it on, not going to happen. So I waited at my little apartment for hours trying to get the call, and I'll never forget my manager, Miles Bell, at the time called me, and he said, well, I got some news. I was laying on a couch that my mom had bought me, and he said, they passed on it. And, man, I rolled off the couch. I literally rolled off the couch into the floor and just started bawling because I knew I wasn't going to get another shot. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. You know, the money done been spent. That was it. And I'm going to tell you, this is what'll get you. It got me. That afternoon, her name was Tracy Rogers. She was the head of programming at CMT at the time. She took that video that was on a VHS tape back to her office and watched it about 10 times, called a staff meeting on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock before everybody went home. Everybody came back in that conference room, and she said, guys, I'm going to overrule you on this one. I'm putting this on the network starting next Saturday, and if I lose my job over it, I'll take the heat. Y'all have a great weekend. And she put that video in rotation the next weekend, and it was one of the longest running videos that CMT ever done.
Wow.
Ever. And the next thing was 35 more after that, and my life changed. Wow. You know, that's when it really changed, you know, because had Tracy Rogers not have took that VHS tape on a Friday afternoon when everybody was ready to get the hell out of there and called another meeting and said, I'm going to overrule you. I see something in this old boy that maybe y'all don't see. And I'd be damned. There again, never easy. Never easy. It never came easy. But somehow it just worked.
Yeah.
You know.
That's incredible. And what I was thinking is, like, nowadays, I don't know what the plan is or what's going to happen, but I feel like back then, like you said, it was CMT or that's it, pal. We're not seeing, you're probably not going to see a video anywhere, but now we have like the social media platforms and YouTube, and there's other ways to get your
yeah,
you know what I mean? There's other ways to get your stuff out there.
There is. And I do, you know, I just shot a little video this morning down at a Buc-ee's, down in Lexington, and hopefully it'll turn out good. You know, I've got just a few things left that I wanna accomplish, and you know, then I can start thinking about, okay, you know, when's it time? But I had written a one-man show that I'll have to send you sometime. When you're bored, I'll send it to you. I wrote it with an L.A. actor out there, a guy by the name of Mike Panuski, who's been on everything you could imagine, just a brilliant actor, Law and Order, you name it, he's been in it. And he had saw my story about me and my mom and what I went through with Alzheimer's with her, and I documented all of it. And he called me one day and he said, man, we got to write that. It's too powerful not to write. So for about a year and a half, we wrote a one-man show called One Mo Moment, which was my mom's name, Mo. And it was, I've got it finished. And that's the next thing that I want to accomplish if I have to cash in my retirement or whatever I got to do. I want to put that on tape for the world to see, so they can see the journey, see the story of me from start to finish, and how I ended up, you know, becoming an actor, not on film and television, but at an old folks home, with my mom as she went through Alzheimer's, because she didn't know me anymore. She didn't know my name. She didn't know who I was, but she knew me as other people, her husband, her girlfriend, her aunt, my best friend, Brent Matheson. I thought, you know what, damn it? If she don't know me and I can't communicate with her, I'll just play all the parts of the people she thinks I am. And man, for 6 months, I sat in there and I played every part. I acted it out. I put on the hats. I wore the glasses, whatever I had to do to communicate with her, you know. Yeah. And then one Sunday I was getting ready to leave, and I was over there washing my hands at the sink, and Mom was coming more nonverbal by this point, you know, and I knocked my glasses off my forehead, and they fell in the sink, and I thought, oh, no, I was bawling my eyes out as I did every time I left there, you know, and I thought, oh, no, I've woke Mama up, and sure enough, I looked over, and when my glasses hit the sink, Mom raised her head up, and, dude, I'm telling you, Darren, she looked right at me, and there was a brief moment of silence, and I didn't know what to say, and she looked at me, and she said, well, God, is that you?
Oh.
And I said, okay. Now, I've played the part of her husband, her aunt, her uncle, but how do I play the part of God? And right then and there, man, I felt a nice, cool presence come over me, and I felt like the good Lord said, have at it, Hoss, have at it. And I said, yes, ma'am, Miss Rutledge, it's me, God. And she said, so I made it, didn't I? And I said, yes, ma'am, you made it. And my mother never spoke to me again.
Oh, my gosh.
Never spoke to me again till the night she died. I had went down there. I'd go to that nursing home, man, for the next 4 or 5 months. And I was pissed off, you know, and cussing God. And, you know, I did everything for my mother, and I never missed a birthday. And, you know, you took her away from me, you know, all the feelings that you would have as a kid, you know, going through that. And I went home on a Monday, and I sat in that nursing home with her Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. She never spoke a word. And Thursday night around midnight, I went over there and flicked the light on. I said, Mom, I know you can't hear me, and I know it's getting close, but I said, I got to run over here and take a shower, get some ibuprofen. My back's killing me. And I said, I'll be back in just a minute. And I said, don't you dare think about dying till I get back. And I said, I love you, Mama. And she looked at me and said, well, I love you too, son. Just as plain as I'm sitting here talking to you, Darren Carter, on this telephone. As plain. And I looked around that room and said, anybody hear that? My mother just acknowledged me for the first time in months with the most clearest. It wasn't a weak, I love you too, son. It was like I was an idiot for not thinking that she heard me. It was like, well, I love you too, son. And I think at that very moment, that was God saying, hey, for all you done, for all the years of trying, for all the years of being there for the arguments, for the cars, for the houses, for the money, for the love, for the companionship, I gave you this gift just to show you how powerful I am. Because tomorrow, she's coming home to be with me. And she died the next day. But what a great gift. What a gift.
What a gift.
I don't know that I could have made it through life as well as I have had I not got that I love you too, son. That was life-changing for me, you know.
That's life-changing. Man, the way you tell your stories, I love it. And, man, that was just, I've gotten goosebumps a few times during this episode.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to talk your ear off.
No, I love it. And I hope you would, be a regular on the podcast. Maybe have you pop in from time to time, because you have so much to say, and you're a great communicator. You know, I knew you as from the music videos and the funny songs, but I'm getting to know you more. Man, you were like the one-man show. That's, I could see why you're so successful, because you could do so many different things,
Well, man, sometimes that's a blessing and a damn curse. I'm gonna tell you, it really, truly is. And then we'll close it with this. I've always told my agents, and I've been with William Morris, and I mean, you know them all. Never had the opportunity to be at a CAA or anything, but I was at APA. Jim Gosdale out there in LA, was a great friend, back when I was on their roster. And I always said, look, you can put me in a church on Thursday, a comedy club on Friday, an Alzheimer's convention on Saturday, and, an AA meeting on Sunday, and I'll be fine. The problem with that is it's always been hard for me to focus on something. Yeah. I bounce off the walls. Got to do this. I can do that. Hey, guess what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. And
even that's funny.
It gets tiring. It gets tiring. And that's really why I reached out to you several months ago about management. I've had great managers. I've had some that, sucked, as we all have along the way. But I'm hoping that at some point someone will hear the story and go, you know what? Let's do this. Yeah. Let's do this, because I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I believe it's for the right reasons, to touch people and to give them hope. And I hope the next manager that I may have a chance to talk to will say, I got you. I got you, because at this point in my life, hell, I'm just trying not to foul out. That's it. I'm just trying to get to the finish line, and that is my swan song, if I can ever put that to fruition. So
I got a couple
keep
quick
your fingers crossed.
We will. I got a couple quick questions before we go. Are you still working on like original songs? Do you still do parodies? Are there new songs?
Mostly parodies.
Yeah.
And then I write other songs for it, to try to get others cut. I had a Brantley Gilbert cut and a Rascal Flatts cut and a couple other things, but mostly it's what I'm known for, is the parody thing. So that's mostly it.
Like, who I'm really digging now? Zach Top. I love the way
dude, he's the best.
He's the best, right?
Yeah,
I mean, his voice, he kind of has that 90s throwback, and
he'll save country music right now, I'm telling you.
Yep.
He will.
And then okay, I got to say this real quick. I heard you and George Jones. That is a great song. To me, that wasn't even really a parody. It was, I was country before country was pop or something. I think it's how.
Yeah.
And I listened to that again this morning, and I'm like, man. And then George Jones he's a legend. And you guys sounded so.
I had a chance to. I did 48 or 49 shows with George.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Became close friends with him and Nancy and Bobby, his road manager, and all the guys, and George was really good to me. I mean, I love George. That's another time when you got your head down your hands going, what the hell? what the hell? Are you kidding me? But I'll tell you this in closing.
Yeah.
It may sound great to you, but it was the hardest gig I had ever done, because them people that come to see George didn't come to see Cledus, I'm going to tell you. They came to see the legend, the possum, and I got booed more at that thing. It's every night, 'cause of course there wasn't about 3 or 4 people breathing on their own out there, they were so old, but George was a wonderful human being, man, and again, that's one of those things where you go, how'd I pull this off? But, man, I'm going to let you get on with you Friday. Let's watch some basketball. And if you ever need me for anything, I'm always here for you, man. Best of luck to you. And we'll do this again. And if you find one of them big highfalutin L.A. managers, send them my way.
I will. Hey, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you, buddy.
You too, man. Thanks a lot, Dave. I appreciate you.
You got it. Well, look at you. You made it all the way through. Wasn't that great? That was a great episode. You guys, thank you so much. Please do me a favor. Check out Buy Me a Coffee. Look at that link if you want to help the podcast go, and it keeps the flashlight batteries fresh. Go to the link tree, go to YouTube, and leave some comments. Help that algorithm. Let the world know, man. There's a fun, positive podcast that's out there ready for your entertainment. And I want to thank Cledus again for doing the show. He's great, and I wish him the best, and hopefully we'll get him back. He's a busy guy and a great guy, and you guys are great for listening. Look at that, man. You made it all the way through. All right, now get out there. Don't hurt nobody. Be careful.
Everybody listen to Darren Carter. We all know he's the party starter. So if you want to listen to a podcast for free, then listen to the Pocket Party.